Greetings, Corpers. Welcome to SOLARCORP's Intermediate to Advanced Combat Pilot and Pilot's Training, that we're going to call it. In this video, I will try to give you guys a little more understanding of some of the advanced ship systems and some of the advanced flight capabilities of ships. I won't be going over customizations and stuff like that of your ships. You will basically just kind of learn as you go, what weapons work on what ships better, and so on and so forth. So without any further ado, let's head on over to Arena Commander, and we'll get to cracking on that. We're just going to go into a single player match, and we're going to choose free flight, and we're going to head to Dying Star, and let's get this baby started. Okay, now that we are in, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the difference between gimbaled and non-gimbaled weapons. Okay, so gimbaled means that the weapons kind of pivot on axes on the wings or wherever they're mounted on your ship. That's represented by the cursor that I'm moving around on my ship here. So wherever this cursor is looking currently, that's where my weapons are going to fire. Okay, so the weapons are moving up and down, left and right, to try to align themselves with that cursor that I'm using. Personally, I don't fly gimbaled weapons. That is just a preference of mine. I feel that gimbaled weapons breed straight line pilots. My thought process on it is if I can keep my nose facing toward you, which I'm gonna have to do to a certain extent anyways, even with gimbaled weapons, because they only go to a certain point and they lock. I'm going to be able to line my target up on you, and I can also mount larger weapons in my gimbal slots. So there again, that's why I go with non-gimbaled. I just think personally, I think it's better. To each his own on that. So that should cover gimbals. Now, if you wanted to turn your gimbal locks off, which is what I always do, if you remove the gimbals, it'll take them off automatically, but if you wanted to try it, you can press right Alt and J, and it'll remove that gimbal lock. So now you can see that my weapons are no longer going to track my mouse movement. Instead, my mouse movement's going to just be controlling my ship. To me, it's one less thing to worry about, and it takes away one more flight component that I have to worry about. So my preference. So let's move on to the countermeasure systems, okay? The countermeasures, you have two types of countermeasures. You have chaff and you have flare.
Chaff, online.
Press the G key to toggle between chaff and flare. Hold down the G key, that will deploy a chaff or a flare. So I'm going to hold down the G key here now. Notice that's going to deploy the chaff. Press the G key again, that's going to toggle me to the flare. I'm going to toggle flares by holding down the G key. Okay, very handy for keeping those pesky missiles off your ass. Alright, now the difference between the chaff and the flares are the chaffs are going to be good for deterring heat-seeking missiles, and your chaffs are going to be good for deterring your radar-guided missiles, or your radar-guided missiles and missiles of that nature. So, and you also notice, the type of missile that is locked onto your ship will be displayed by either a red flashing lightning bolt or a red fire flame, or a red, I call it a Wi-Fi looking signal on your heads-up display. So, based on what type of missile you have incoming, you'll want to select the chaff or the flare to counter that respectively. So that should cover that. Next, we'll move over to the flight speed control and the different flight modes. Currently, previously we had 3 flight modes. Currently, we have 2 flight modes. Flight mode 1, or PRE, as it's technically called, is basically our precision mode. You can deploy precision mode by pressing the N key. Deploying your landing gear, that's going to notice, as you'll notice, it'll change that from SCM to PRE. Now if I throttle 100% forward, it's basically going to limit my throttle at 50, okay, because I am in precision mode. And if I press the N key again, not touching the throttle, notice the difference in speed.
Landing gear raised.
Now that's going to put us in SCM, or Space Combat Mode. That is basically the speed in which you will be flying during all of your combat situations. So I will talk about what I feel is the optimal speed to engage hostiles. Some of that will be dependent on the type of ship that you are fighting. Know your ships, know their speeds. That will help you tremendously when setting your speed that you would like to fight them at. Now, I feel fighting at about anywhere between the 60 and the 70, the thrust mark is typically going to allow your ship to be more maneuverable. You can maneuver better, you can move better. I'll give you a demonstration on that. We'll go ahead and go up to full speed here, and we will head inward on the map. And the direction of your ship is always going to be noted by the green arrow that lags behind. You see the green arrow there? So that is the actual direction that your ship is currently traveling, and the center target is the direction that you are trying to go. So that's always going to lag behind your actual direction. Okay? So at full throttle, you'll notice that if I strafe left or right using the A or the D key, the amount of time it takes for the lag to catch up with the actual direction is greater. So I'm going to just strafe left, okay, and I'm going to strafe right. And notice the amount of time it takes that cursor to go across the screen. Okay, now I'm going to turn around. I'm going to slow my speed to about half, and I'm going to do the same thing again. And you notice how much faster that reticule is moving from left to right. So my maneuverability has increased drastically because I don't have the force of my thrusters working against my maneuvering thrusters. So if you want to be a little more maneuverable, slow your speed down a little bit. That'll get you more maneuverability, but that also is going to depend on who and what you are fighting. Smaller ships, you may find that it might be easier for you to increase your speed a little bit more just to try to keep pace with them. That's going to be on a case-by-case basis, but generally, the slower the speed, the more maneuverability. Next, we will talk about targeting systems. On this particular ship, the top left screen here is going to be the health and status of my ship. The screen on the right up here is going to be the health and status of the ship you currently have targeted. In our case, we don't have a ship targeted. We're in a single-player free flight mode here for demonstrational purposes. The screens on the interior of your ship, or the ship systems panels, you can always change these. To enable free look in your ship, as we've talked about in the previous videos, you just press the Z key. That will allow you to look freely throughout your ship without it moving your ship around. So kind of neat thing to do if you're just kind of out cruising around. You can always look around and take advantage of the windows, but most commonly it's going to be used for navigating your ship screens. So these screens here, these are basically just going to be status displays. They are going to show you general information. In a combat ship, a pilot might always want to have his shield status displayed on that screen, and he might want to have I usually keep mine on the boost fuel and quantum fuel screens, so I'm kind of always aware of the amount of boost fuel and quantum fuel that I have whenever I'm flying throughout the universe. So these two here in combination with these two at the top, the damage indicators, are generally going to give me an overall representation of my status. So just the way I run mine. Now we'll zoom in here, and this is going to be your main configuration system panel for your ship here. I do believe that these are botched at the moment in this build of the game. This would be where you would go in and select the groupings for your weapons. In my case, these are all energy weapons. They are all laser cannons. M5As and one M6A laser cannon. So I just have them all grouped in a single group, which in this case I can't do technically. So I just pull both of my triggers at the same time to fire both groups. It'll also show you the heat levels and then the ammo or the charge rates for them. So very good information to have, especially if you run ballistics. It'll show you your ammo, and your energy weapons, it'll show you your heat level. So over here, this panel here, this will show you the type and the type and the quantity of missiles that you have currently on your ship. You can arm missiles from this screen. You used to be able to. You can't now. It seems they're be botched in here. I don't know if this is just a single-player Arena Commander thing or if it's kind of universal. The power panel here, obviously, you can adjust your ship's power in correlation to where you'd like more of your power to be diverted. This is pretty obvious here. We want more power to weapons or shields or thrust. The default is going to be there in the center like that. You can also go in and fine-tune your individual powers to your components, which I think this is going to be very cool once it all gets implemented. This will allow us to designate power to different systems where we could tweak our ships and maybe have power a little bit less to something and then more to something else to give us more of a competitive edge. That's going to be very cool. So just keep in mind, the takeaway here, guys, is that some of this stuff is not currently 100% operational yet, but you can bet your sweet behinds that it will be when the game comes out. So it's better to know now and be updated than not know and not know. This will obviously here be where you will assign more power towards a certain area of your shields, be it front, back, left, or right. You would slide the slider around here and it would divert more power to your front shields or your rear shields and so on respectively. So that pretty much covers that. And then I do believe that this guy over here is your targeting screen, and this will display detailed information about your target if you have a target up here if you have a target selected. So that should cover your ship systems panels. We'll go ahead and hit Z, and then we'll just retain control of our ship here again. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is going to be the coupled and G-safe flight modes on your ship, if you want to call them flight modes. Now, coupled and decoupled, you engage and disengage just as long with G-safe. Now, what G-safe does is basically whenever you are flying through space, it is essentially kind of just the way it sounds. It's a G-force protection. So whenever I make a hard left turn, my thrusters are only going to maneuver at a safe rate for me not to pass out. Okay? And as you'll notice, if I start to throttle downwards and then maneuver upwards, my pilot will begin to turn red. He will have blood rush to his head, and then as I move downwards, the screen will actually turn white and he will not have that much blood going to his head. So what that allows you to do is that allows you to pull harder turns, it allows you to pull tighter turns, it allows you to roll and basically maneuver to the full capabilities of your ship at the risk of you causing yourself to pass out, in which at that point you will become incoherent. You will lay down and face the stick kind of like this, and in the meantime you are pretty much a sitting duck. So I very, very rarely, if ever, fly in in non-G-safe mode. That's just kind of another little tweak that you can do to, give yourself a bit of a competitive edge. You may want to do that on a larger ship, but on some of the smaller ships, it's pretty easy to pass out. So now we'll talk about coupled and decoupled mode. These are going to be some of the modes that you will probably use more often than not. I use decoupled and coupled mode every time I get behind the stick of one of my ships. So the concept of coupled mode is basically, it's kind of like a flight assist for your ship. As I throttle and move forward, my ship continues to fly in a straight line. As I move my nose down, you'll notice that my ship is going to turn and automatically fly in the direction that I point my ship, whether it be left, right, up, down, side to side, and what have you. In decoupled mode, since we are flying in space, if we fly in decoupled mode, our ship will continue to travel at in its current direction, regardless of which way we turn or aim the ship. Okay, there's a difference between turning and aiming and rolling and actually thrusting. Okay, thrusters help us move. Turning and rolling uses the thrusters, but we still continue to move in the same direction. As you can see here, I have not changed the throttle at all. I have not inputted any thrust commands, and I am now currently flying backwards. And if I go back into coupled mode, my ship is automatically going to go back into its kind of flight assist mode, if that's what you'll call it, and it will continue to act just like a ship that would be flying in an atmosphere. So now you can enable decoupled mode and turn, and then your thrust will be a separate key configuration that you will probably need to set up in your controls customization. Now the advantage to using coupled and decoupled mode would be if you are coming at a target head first, and let's say you're especially in a larger craft that does not have the maneuverability of a smaller craft, you would enter decoupled mode while maintaining your current direction. You'd be able to turn, and as your target flew past you, you would turn your ship and you would automatically be facing your target without jeopardizing your speed or anything like that. And then you could maneuver and so on and so forth. So decoupled mode, you can thrust up and down as well, and pretty much wherever you thrust it to is pretty much going to be your end direction. So as I thrust to the right here, you'll notice I'm going to continue, even though my ship is not facing in that direction based on that crosshair over there, that circle indicates the actual direction of our ship. So I can thrust left or strafe left, same button, and now I'm going to continue to fly in that direction. Okay, so it's all done by thrust whenever you fly in decoupled mode. So just keep that in mind. Okay? I like to come into Arena Commander and practice circling an asteroid and landing as many shots on it as I can at about half throttle. If you can do that, you will become a better combat pilot.
Proximity alert. Active proximity alert. Starboard proximity alert. Forward proximity alert. Starboard proximity.
You cut it a little close on that.
Proximity alert.
It's not as easy as it looks, especially in an asteroid field such as this.
Proximity alert.
The objective here is to kind of throttle your maneuvering thrusters to left or right, depending on which direction you are going, and to control your distance around that rock. Works very well. If you can perfect that, you'll be a better combat pilot. We will probably call that good for this video, even though we didn't get to kill any actual live targets. But I feel that the information that we went over in this video should hopefully get you a lot better of an understanding about your ship, its systems, targeting, and so on and so forth. So we may do another video with some actual combats, but But we'll go from there. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the verse.